Welcome back to Legacy, the Business Succession Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jared Pilon. In the last episode, we talked about the emotional side of succession planning and why letting go can be one of the most difficult parts of the entire process. Today, we're moving back into the structural side of succession planning and discussing one of the biggest decisions a business owner will eventually face. Who should take over the business? For many owners, there are typically two primary paths: a family transition or a third-party sale. Both can work very well. Both come with different opportunities, risks, and very different dynamics. This episode is for educational purposes only, and it is not specific legal, tax, or financial advice. When owners first think about succession planning, many instinctively imagine keeping the business in the family, and that idea is understandable. For some owners, the business represents more than just an asset. It represents family history. It represents their identity. It represents their legacy. Years of sacrifice and effort that they hope will continue into the next generation. There can be a very strong emotional desire to see children or other family members continue building what was originally started. And in some cases, that works extremely well. But a successful family transition requires more than shared last names. It requires compatibility, commitment, communication, and structure. One of the most common assumptions in family business transitions is that the interest automatically equals readiness. But those are not always the same thing. A child may be interested in the business without being prepared to lead that business. Or they may feel pressure to participate because of family expectations rather than actually having a genuine interest. Those distinctions matter. A successful family transition usually involves gradual development over time. It requires leadership exposure, operational responsibility, decision-making experience, financial understanding, and it also requires clarity around the roles. This is especially true when multiple family members are involved in that business. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine a business owner with 3 children. One works in the business on a full-time basis. One has a separate professional career. And one has no interest in the business whatsoever. If the goal is to transition ownership fairly, what does fairness actually mean in this case? Does fairness actually mean equal ownership? Does it mean equal economic benefit? Does it mean leadership authority goes only to the child that is actively involved? There is no universal answer to this question. But these questions need to be addressed directly. Otherwise, assumptions begin to develop, and the assumptions often become future conflict. Another challenge in family transitions is separating family dynamics from business decisions. That is not always an easy task. Parents naturally want to treat children fairly, but fairness and equality are not always the same thing in a business environment. The person carrying operational responsibility may require different authority, compensation, ownership structure than family members who are not actively involved. Without structure, these differences can become emotional very quickly. This is one reason governance becomes so important in family businesses. Clear expectations, defined roles, documented agreements, decision-making frameworks are just some of the things that will help reduce the ambiguity within your business. Ambiguity is often where that conflict begins to grow. Now let's contrast that with a third-party sale. A third-party transaction is usually more financially driven. The primary focus tends to be valuation, tax efficiency, the structure of the deal, maybe the timing of the deal, risk management associated with closing to that third party. In many cases, a third-party buyer may be willing to pay more than a family member or management group can actually reasonably finance. That higher valuation can create financial security for the owner and their family, but a third-party sale also creates different considerations. What is going to happen to your employees? Will the company culture remain intact? Will the business continue operating in the same community? Will long-term staff remain after that transaction concludes? Those questions matter to many owners, especially owners who have spent decades building close relationships with employees and customers. Some owners ultimately prioritized continuity and legacy over maximizing their ending sale price. Others prioritize that financial certainty. Neither approach is automatically right or wrong, and it depends on each owner's priorities. Those priorities are not always purely financial. Let me give you another example. Imagine two owners with very similar businesses. The first owner chooses a third-party sale. The valuation is strong, the transaction closes successfully. But within 2 years, major operational changes occur. Staff turnover increases, processes are changed, the company culture shifts significantly. Financially, the transaction may still have been a success. But emotionally, the owner may struggle watching the business evolve into something very different from what they had originally built and intended to continue on. Now imagine another owner who transitions the business gradually to family members over time. The transaction takes longer, the valuation may not be as high as that third-party offer, but continuity is preserved. Employees remain on, relationships remain stable, and the owner feels a sense of ongoing legacy and involvement in that business. Again, neither outcome is universally better, right or wrong, they are simply different. That's why succession planning is not just a financial exercise. It also values exercise in a number of different areas. Owners need clarity around what matters most to them. Maximum value, continuity, family legacy, employee stability, reduced stress, community impact. Those priorities shape the direction of the plan. Another important point is timing. Family transitions often require longer preparation periods. Leadership development takes time. Trust within that family unit also takes time. And the financial structuring can also take time to ensure it's set up properly. A third-party transaction can sometimes move much faster. But even then, the businesses that are operationally prepared usually achieve the strongest outcomes. Regardless of which path is ultimately chosen, preparation matters. Strong financial reporting is important. Leadership depth within the company is also important. Clear documentation, reduce owner dependence, these things matter in succession planning. These factors improve your options at the end of the day, and options are valuable because your plans can often change. A family transition may eventually become a third-party sale. A third-party process may fall through at any given point in time. Economic conditions may shift. Family circumstances can evolve at any point in time. The owners who navigate these transitions most effectively are usually the ones who have prepared broadly rather than preparing for only one narrow outcome. There's also an emotional difference between the two paths. In a family transition, owners often remain connected to the business a lot longer. That can be a positive aspect, but it can also create tension if authority is not clearly transferred to the next generation. In third-party sales, separation is often more defined. That can create clarity, but it can also feel abrupt for employees, customers, etc. Again, there is no universal formula. There are simply trade-offs to consider. And understanding these trade-offs help owners make more intentional decisions. Let me summarize with 3 practical takeaways. First, family transitions and third-party sales both have strengths and challenges. Second, successful family transitions require structure, communication, leadership, not just family relationships. And third, the best succession path is usually the one most aligned with the owner's long-term priorities and values. If you're beginning to think about succession planning, we have created a structured succession planning book that is available on our website at legacyllp.ca. It outlines major components of succession readiness and helps business owners think more clearly about potential transition paths. It's designed as an educational framework to better support planning and conversations. You can download it again at legacyllp.ca. In the next episode, we will discuss another important question. How do you determine whether your business is actually ready for transition? Thanks again for listening to Legacy, the Business Succession Podcast. If you're building something meaningful, it deserves a thoughtful transition. We'll talk again soon. Take care for now.